Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like on this video, and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Now, let's get into the story. Deep in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, a group of 5 young travelers disappeared without a trace. Their journey began as a summer adventure, documented through cameras, notebooks, and the occasional live post on social media. They were students, recent graduates, and backpackers seeking something extraordinary. For them, the jungle was not only a destination, but a challenge, a chance to escape the ordinary rhythm of city life. The group consisted of Ethan Moore, a photography student from Seattle, Claire Donovan, a biologist fascinated by rare species, Rachel Miller, an aspiring journalist, Adam Brooks, a thrill seeker who had traveled across Asia, and Jason Patel, a medical student whose calm demeanor often kept the group grounded. Together, they flew into Brazil with limited maps, hired a local guide for the first 2 days, and then chose to continue alone into deeper, unmarked territory. At first, their notes and video recordings showed excitement and awe. The trees towered above them like cathedral walls, and the constant hum of insects filled every corner of silence. Rachel's early entries describe how the forest seemed alive, breathing with us, watching us. They had little fear until they began to notice signs that someone or something had been moving parallel to their path. By the 3rd day, Ethan's footage shows strange carvings on tree trunks. The symbols, etched in spirals and jagged lines, appeared freshly cut. Claire insisted they were territorial markers of an indigenous tribe, perhaps uncontacted by the outside world. Adam laughed it off, calling them jungle graffiti. But Rachel's voice on the recording is different. She whispers that the carvings felt deliberate, personal, almost like warnings. That night, they set up camp near a riverbank. The footage becomes shaky as Ethan's camera picks up distant chanting. It is faint at first, rising and falling with the wind. Jason can be heard saying it's just the echo of birds or howler monkeys, but the rhythm is unmistakable. Human voices repeating a pattern as if performing a ritual. From this point on, their recordings change in tone. Laughter fades and whispers take over. They begin rationing food. Claire complains of constant migraines. Ethan captures blurred movement in the trees, quick shadows that vanish when he turns the lens. In one entry, Rachel writes, "They're following us. Not animals. People. They want us to go deeper." On the 5th day, the group stumbles upon what appears to be an abandoned village. Dozens of wooden totems surround the clearing, each carved into distorted human shapes with hollow eyes. Skulls, animal and human alike, hang from ropes tied across the huts. Everything seems deserted, yet freshly used. Jason urges them to leave immediately, but Adam insists on exploring. That decision would mark the beginning of their true nightmare. Ethan's camera captures Adam stepping inside a hut. Inside, he finds bones arranged in patterns on the floor, with blackened ash suggesting ritual burnings. The group argues, voices rising, until a sudden noise interrupts them, a sharp crack from the forest edge. The footage ends abruptly there. The next entry is different. Rachel, holding the camera, speaks directly into it. Her face is pale, her voice trembling. She says Adam never came back from the hut. They searched for hours, calling his name, but found no trace, only his backpack, lying just outside the clearing, straps torn as if ripped by force. That night, the chanting returned, closer than ever. Claire breaks down crying on camera, begging to turn back, but the jungle has already swallowed the path they took in. The last part of Block 1 shows their descent into fear. Jason tries to lead, marking trees with a knife to retrace their steps. Yet every morning, the markings are gone. Trees that should carry scars stand smooth, untouched, as if the forest itself heals overnight. Rachel writes one final chilling note: "We are not lost, we are being guided, and whoever is guiding us is waiting. Rachel's notebook continues as the only reliable record after Adam's disappearance. The surviving footage is fragmented, sometimes black screens, sometimes muffled audio, but together they reconstruct the path of the remaining 4. On the morning after Adam vanished, Jason tried to convince the group to head back north, tracing the river upstream. He insisted that staying near water would increase their chances of survival and rescue. Ethan disagreed. His obsession with documenting everything seemed to grow stronger, as if the act of filming could protect them. "If people see this," he said on one of the tapes, "they'll know what happened. They'll know we didn't just get lost." But the recordings show something darker. Claire, once curious and energetic, now mutters to herself, repeating words she claims to have heard in the chanting. In one video, Rachel focuses on her friend's hands. She is carving symbols into her skin with a sharp stick, the same spirals they saw on the trees. Jason grabs her wrists, shouting for her to stop, but she only stares back blankly, whispering, "They want me to remember." That night, the chanting returned louder than before. The rhythm echoed from all directions, surrounding the group like a tightening circle. At one point, Ethan whispers, "Do you hear the drums?" But the recording plays no sound beyond the human voices. The following morning, Rachel's journal describes waking up to find Claire gone. Her sleeping bag was empty, her belongings untouched. On the ground beside it, etched into the dirt, was a single symbol, a spiral drawn with what looked like blood. Jason panicked, demanding they leave immediately. Ethan, shaken but determined, wanted to search. "She didn't just walk away," he says on camera. "She was taken." They followed, faint tracks deeper into the jungle. Hours later, they stumbled upon a clearing filled with sharpened wooden stakes planted in the ground, each one topped with small animal skulls. In the center, tied between 2 poles, hung Claire's necklace, the silver pendant she wore since childhood. But there was no sign of her body. Rachel describes the discovery as a message, not a memorial. From here, the evidence becomes scattered. Ethan's footage turns shaky, often blurred by sudden movements. Jason begins leaving desperate audio notes pleading for help. "If anyone finds this, we're being hunted. They know where we sleep. They erase where we've been. We can't hide from them." Then came the first direct sighting. One night, Ethan's camera captured movement at the edge of their campfire's light. Human figures, thin, painted in ash and ochre, their bodies covered with spirals and jagged lines. Their eyes reflected the flames like glass. They stood still, watching. No words, no gestures, just silence. When Jason threw a burning branch toward them, the figures vanished into the darkness without a sound. The group barely slept. Rachel describes the forest as closing in, each tree leaning toward them, branches intertwining above like a cage. Hunger gnawed at them. Jason rationed food until they were chewing on leaves and roots. Ethan, weakened, still carried the camera, like a lifeline. The next disappearance came suddenly. During the day, while crossing a shallow stream, Jason slipped on the rocks. Ethan and Rachel helped him up, but when they turned, Ethan was gone. His backpack lay on the bank, his camera floating downstream. Rachel managed to retrieve it, waterlogged but still functional. Reviewing the last seconds of footage, she saw a blur of movement. A hand, painted in spirals, seizing Ethan's arm before pulling him into the undergrowth. His scream was cut short. Now, only Rachel and Jason remained. Their recordings grow increasingly fragmented, more frantic. Rachel writes of hearing voices in her head, whispering in a language she doesn't understand. Jason, exhausted, begins praying out loud at night. In one disturbing entry, Rachel confesses she started to see Adam and Claire among the trees, their faces painted like the tribe, their eyes blank and unrecognizable. She insists they are not, dead but transformed. Days later, the inevitable happened. Jason vanished. Rachel describes waking up alone, finding the ground around the camp disturbed by dozens of bare footprints. His shoes, his pack, even his clothes were gone, as if he had been absorbed into the forest itself. Rachel is now the last voice. Her handwriting grows unstable, slanted, words overlapping. In her final coherent note, she writes, "They're not killing us. They're changing us. The jungle doesn't let go. It consumes." The last footage found in Ethan's damaged camera shows Rachel walking through dense vegetation, alone, muttering. Her eyes are glazed, her skin painted with dark pigments in crude spirals. She is no longer pleading for help. Instead, she chants softly, in rhythm with the voices echoing in the distance. Investigators who later analyzed the material confirmed one haunting conclusion. Rachel had joined the tribe, but no trace of her or any of the others was ever recovered. What happened to Rachel Miller and her friends in the Amazon rainforest was not an isolated case. In fact, when journalists and investigators revisited the evidence years later, they began to uncover an unsettling pattern: disappearances, expeditions that never returned, fragmented testimonies from those who managed to escape but were never the same again. One of the earliest accounts dates back to the 1930s. An American explorer named Henry Caldwell documented his journey deep into the Amazon in a series of letters sent to his wife. In one letter, preserved at the National Archives, Caldwell describes stumbling upon villages of silence, settlements filled with carved idols and symbols identical to those found near the clearing where Rachel's group disappeared. In his last letter, he writes, "I hear the chanting at night. They are around us but invisible. If I do not return, tell the world the jungle has a people who do not want to be found." Caldwell and his entire expedition vanished weeks later. Only his letters survived, sent from the last outpost he reached before entering the dense forest. Decades later, during the 1970s, the Brazilian military conducted operations in remote areas of the Amazon to map uncharted territories and assess natural resources. A declassified report obtained through the Freedom of Information Act reveals that several patrols encountered what they described as phantom tribes. Soldiers reported being watched, food stolen, equipment sabotaged during the night. One officer wrote, "They move without sound, like shadows. When we set traps, they are disarmed before dawn. When we light fires, they surround us without approaching. They let us know we are never alone." The most disturbing part of these military documents is a section labeled "Irreversible Cases." It lists names of soldiers who disappeared without evidence of combat, whose bodies were never recovered. Next to each name is a short note. Assumed, integrated. Researchers believe this meant the military suspected these men had been taken or absorbed by an indigenous group that left no trace behind. Anthropologists studying the Amazon often debate the existence of so-called uncontacted tribes. Many of these communities choose isolation, avoiding all interaction with the outside world. Yet, what investigators discovered about Rachel's case, and the dozens like it, goes beyond isolation. It suggests an organized, deliberate effort to assimilate outsiders, not by choice but through force and ritual. One anthropologist, Dr. Samuel Ortega, gave an interview to a Brazilian newspaper in 2004. He described symbols found carved into trees, spirals, and jagged lines identical to those in Ethan's footage. According to Ortega, these symbols were not random art, but carried meaning. Spirals represented transformation, a cycle without escape. "It is a language," he explained, "a form of claiming territory. But more than that, it is a warning that once you enter, you belong to them." Weeks after the interview, Ortega himself disappeared during a solo research trip into the forest. His body was never found. Journalists investigating Rachel's group obtained testimonies from locals living near the jungle's edge. Farmers and hunters described voices carried on the wind, rhythmic chanting that echoed for hours at night. One hunter, an older man named Luis Ferreira, recalled losing his brother decades earlier. "We went fishing in the river. He walked into the trees, just a few steps, to relieve himself. He never came back. I found his shirt hanging on a branch, folded carefully as if someone had placed it there. But no tracks, no body, nothing. Just silence. The jungle took him." Another chilling testimony came from a missionary, Father Thomas Callahan, who worked in remote Amazonian villages during the 1980s. He claimed he once encountered a group of figures at the edge of his camp, painted in spirals, eyes glazed, standing perfectly still. Among them, he swore, was a man he had baptized months earlier, a local farmer who had gone missing. He was not dead, Callahan said, but he was no longer himself. His face was blank, his movements mechanical, as if the soul had been drained and replaced. Rachel's case reignited public interest because of the surviving footage. Unlike other disappearances, hers left behind tangible evidence: videos, notebooks, recordings. Experts who analyzed the audio noticed something peculiar. The chanting in the background was not random. It followed a structure, repeating syllables that suggested a language but one unknown to linguists. When slowed down, some researchers claimed to hear words resembling Tupi and other indigenous dialects, but altered, distorted, fused into something unrecognizable. What disturbed investigators most was Rachel's final appearance on tape. Her transformation mirrored accounts from decades prior: painted skin, chanting voice, eyes distant. She did not look kidnapped. She looked initiated. This raises the central, horrifying question: what does the tribe want? Some theories suggest a spiritual belief that outsiders are absorbed to strengthen the tribe, expanding their collective identity. Others point to ritual sacrifice, though no remains were ever recovered to confirm this. The most unsettling hypothesis comes from cultural researchers who argue the tribe practices cultural erasure. To them, outsiders are raw material, stripped of individuality and rebuilt into members of their people. Not killed, but recreated. Local legends support this. Folk tales among riverside communities speak of the encantados, spirits of the forest who lure humans into the trees, never to return as themselves. Elders warn children not to answer voices in the jungle at night, because the ones calling are not human anymore. When asked about Rachel's case, one local elder told investigators, "She is not gone. She is with them now. To the jungle, she was reborn." The terror lies in the silence surrounding these events. No official explanation is ever given, no recovery of bodies, no closure for families. Governments label the disappearances as accidents, drownings, animal attacks. But the pattern is undeniable. Those who venture too deep into the untouched heart of the Amazon risk vanishing, not by nature's hand, but by human hands. If the tribe can still be called human at all. To this day, search teams refuse to enter certain marked territories. Satellite images show clearings dotted with wooden totems, spirals burned into the earth. Yet every attempt to approach ends the same way. Equipment fails, guides turn back, and silence swallows the effort. The jungle keeps its secrets, and those it takes, it never returns. The story of Rachel Miller and her friends might have faded into the background of countless disappearances in the Amazon, if not for one thing: technology caught up. By the 2010s, satellite imaging, drones, and advanced GPS made it possible to explore regions once considered inaccessible. Researchers, journalists, and even treasure hunters returned to the question: what really happened to those who vanished in the Green Abyss? In 2016, an investigative team led by Dr. Laura Whitaker, an anthropologist from UCLA, launched a privately funded expedition. Their goal was not to find the lost travelers, but to prove the existence of the tribe that haunted so many accounts. Equipped with drones, thermal cameras, and satellite communication, they believed they could succeed where others had failed. At first, the technology gave them confidence. Drones captured wide shots of the canopy, revealing hidden clearings and geometric patterns in the trees. Thermal cameras picked up heat signatures, clusters of warm bodies moving silently just beyond the visible spectrum. The team celebrated what they thought was proof of uncontacted humans. But celebration turned to unease when those same figures began appearing closer to camp without ever crossing into the open. Always at the edge, always watching. Whitaker kept a video log. In her first entries, she speaks calmly, describing evidence of rituals: wooden totems marked with spirals, clay pots containing ashes, fragments of painted masks. But by the third week, her tone changes. She describes waking up to find the drones disabled, their batteries drained overnight despite being stored safely. GPS trackers began to malfunction, showing impossible readings, coordinates that looped back on themselves as if the team were circling the same ground over and over. And then came the voices. At night, microphones placed around the perimeter, recorded rhythmic chanting. The audio files reveal voices rising and falling in patterns nearly identical to those captured on Ethan's tapes decades earlier. Only this time, they were louder, clearer, surrounding the camp entirely. One particularly chilling recording features Dr. Whitaker herself muttering in her sleep, repeating the same syllables of the chant. When awakened, she claimed she remembered nothing. Weeks later, the first member of the team vanished. A technician named David Carter failed to return from checking sensor equipment. His tools were found scattered on the ground, tripod legs snapped, camera lenses smeared with mud. Footage from his body cam shows the jungle ahead, then a sudden blur of painted figures rushing toward him before the video cuts to static. The remaining team panicked. Some demanded evacuation, but Whitaker insisted on pressing forward, arguing. They were on the brink of uncovering undeniable proof. "We can't stop now," she said in one log. "This is history, this is discovery. But history has a way of repeating itself." Over the next week, 2 more members disappeared. One morning, the camp was found ransacked, not violently but with eerie precision. Every personal item, clothing, notebooks, even shoes, had been taken. What remained were spirals drawn into the dirt around the tents. Satellite communication failed shortly after. The last message received from Whitaker's team was fragmented. "We are not alone. They are inside. The transmission ended abruptly. Months later, a rescue mission ventured into the same area but found nothing. No bodies, no equipment, no trace of the camp. The only discovery was a clearing filled with new totems, larger than before, each painted with spirals. At the base of one stood a pair of boots, neatly placed side by side, belonging to Dr. Whitaker. This event reignited international attention. News outlets debated whether the team had been killed, assimilated, or simply lost. Governments denied involvement. Anthropologists argued over ethics, warning against further intrusions into uncontacted lands. Yet, curiosity persisted. In 2019, drone footage obtained by a Brazilian journalist surfaced briefly online before being taken down. The video showed a group of figures standing in formation in a clearing. Their bodies were painted in spirals, their faces blank. But what drew attention was the clothing. Among the traditional ornaments were fragments of modern fabric, a torn UCLA shirt, a pair of cargo pants, a baseball cap. Evidence, many believe, of Whitaker's team. Experts who reviewed the footage agreed on one disturbing detail. The figures were not emaciated or distressed. They stood tall, still, almost ceremonial. Their movements were synchronized, mechanical. If these were survivors, they were no longer individuals. They had become part of something else. Today, the Amazon remains one of the least explored regions on Earth. Satellite images continue to show unexplainable patterns, clearings forming spirals visible only from above, totems appearing in places. Drones had mapped as empty weeks before. Each expedition that dares to enter risks vanishing, absorbed into the forest's silence. The official stance of governments is cautious denial. Accidents happen, they say. The rainforest is dangerous. People get lost. But those who have studied the evidence know better. The pattern is too precise, too deliberate. And so the legend grows. Travelers whisper warnings at airports. Guides refuse to cross certain rivers, and locals still speak of the chanting carried by the wind. Some claim to hear it even miles from the forest, a distant rhythm that makes the hair on the neck stand up. As for Rachel Miller, Ethan Moore, Claire Donovan, Adam Brooks, Jason Patel, and later Dr. Whitaker's entire team, their names are remembered not just as victims, but as the most recent additions to an ancient cycle. A cycle without end. Because the jungle does not simply consume, it transforms, and those taken by the tribe never truly return.